Welcome to my tutorial for Insector X for the arcade. This took me around 1 hour and 50 minutes to beat. The game is really, not too hard overall, but it has a few very, very difficult checkpoints. So overall, it can be considered a very difficult game, as with a lot of arcade games, because those checkpoints could definitely prevent people from finishing a game. What's going to happen mostly in this game, as with a lot of old arcade games, is you're not going to have any starting power-ups because you're going to die on, checkpoints in the levels, and you're going to start back at those checkpoints with no power-ups to your weapons and, no speed-ups, etc. And it gets very dense later on. The bosses are mostly pretty easy. The final boss even is not really that difficult. It's just annoying if you die on the final boss. You have a very dense checkpoint you have to get past to get back to the boss. So, as with usual in these games, it is worth using save and load states a lot. Here, just stay at the bottom of the screen and you can survive pretty easily, as you see me doing. You just hold down one button to fire, basically. Well, you don't hold it down, but if you have a rapid fire control, which I recommend, set that to rapid, and then just hold it down. And you can, if you get a certain power-up, you'll have a bomb you can drop, which I didn't even know about until the end of the game, but I never really ended up using it, except for once in the entire game when I didn't even need to use it. So, it may be helpful to use that if you get it. Just be aware that the second button also drops a bomb if you have it. You'll know if you have it because you'll be standing on top of a aerosol spray can or something like that. So, that'll be the indication that you have the move. So yeah, for this guy, you're basically just gonna shoot him in the head and just don't really look at the boss. Try to just focus on the shit that he's shooting out. As with a lot of shooters, it helps just to focus on the projectiles. Because you'll get your hits in, as long as you're firing in the general area where the boss is, you're going to kill him eventually, but you got to just keep dodging. And like I said, the bosses are pretty easy. But they can be, they can cause a problem because then, if you die on them, sometimes you got to beat difficult checkpoints to get back to them, so. But, if you save and load state, you can just practice them, so by the time you get to them, you'll be good enough to beat it without having to be sent back. I pretty much do that on every boss, unless the boss, like that boss I think was so easy, I just beat it after a try or two, probably. But yeah, it's still at this point, it's starting to get a little bit harder at this point, but still quite easy for a shooter. Just try to clear out as many enemies as you can. There's going to be very specific paths that I take, especially later on when the game gets, when some of the checkpoints get really difficult. So I'll try to explain exactly what I'm doing on those parts, because that's probably going to be, parts that can stop a lot of people from finishing the game. But there is definitely a path to try to follow that you can make things a lot more manageable. You can memorize these types of games, so parts that seem impossible, if you work at them enough, you start finding little gaps where you can move and in what order you need to move, what enemies you need to take out. A lot of the strategy with a game like this is taking out only the enemies you need to kill to carve a path for yourself to get through, and you got to find that path, and that sometimes is the hardest part, is finding, trial and error, finding the best path for you to move through. Because you're going to have to move through with no power-ups a lot of times, because when you die, you're going to lose them, so. Here's another very easy boss. For this guy, mainly just keep an eye on those little bugs that he shoots out. And just be ready for him to charge. He does it in a rhythm. It's very predictable when he's going to charge again, so. Be ready for him to lunge forward and just, move out of the way. That's it. Not too much to say, and if you need to practice it, practice it. But for anyone who's played a lot of shooters, this game's not going to be difficult up to this point. It's going to be pretty damn easy. But that will change at a few parts, and it's inconsistent. Sometimes you'll have a hard part just in the middle somewhere. Kind of. It's not really it's not always a gradual increase in difficulty. You know, as with a lot of these arcade games, they're not really balanced like that. They just, you know, every section is unique. But yeah, of course, if you can bring your power-ups from the previous level and, you know, make yourself to the next checkpoints, you'll save yourself a lot of difficulty in this game because, you know, if you die when you're powered up, of course, you got to start back at the last checkpoint without your power-ups, and it's going to be a lot harder to get through that area. So always try to go as far as you can, obviously. You know, don't take it lightly that you got to, you know, the next area and you can, you know, you'll just start back to the next checkpoint. Try to get to the checkpoint beyond that while you have all your power-ups. You know, try to make the best use out of it. Because some of these parts, I imagine, would have given me more trouble had I not powered through them on the first try with, you know, a powered-up character. Not that I ever really got any great power-ups or anything. I usually don't. I'm usually not that powered up because I pretty much only survive checkpoint to checkpoint, so it's not really enough time to get a shitload of power-ups. So yeah, for this, also remember that driving into the walls doesn't hurt you. So you can rub up against the walls if you want. It doesn't matter. Obviously, those walls that you saw me go over will block you in and crush you against the back of the screen and kill you, obviously. But you know, you can hit into the wall. So don't worry about trying to dodge that you're going to hit into something on the wall or something, because the walls don't hurt you. So you don't even have to focus on that. Just focus on dodging all the bullets. Like I said, in this game, especially when you're not powered up, the trick, one of the big tricks is to try to clear out the enemies that are going to cause you problems right away. So you're going to learn, you know, try to be aware of what's killing you and who's killing you. And you know, then next time be like, well, how can I make a path to get to this enemy and take him out next time so I don't get killed by him again and again? And, you know, by thinking like that and analyzing it like that, you'll get through a lot faster. If you kind of just mindlessly keep playing without thinking about what's going on, you know, you'll be spending a lot more time. And, you know, that's part of becoming a better player as well, is analyzing and what you need to do differently and trying to adapt quickly. So for this guy, I like to keep my back against the wall almost the entire time, because that gives me the maximum amount of time to respond to the bullets. You know, you see, I just came out a little bit from the back there, but I rarely do that. My main tactic was to keep my back up against that wall. And just try to focus on moving just up and down. And the reason I say try to focus on just moving up and down is because, you know, when you have to comprehend all 8 directions, right, your brain is overworking, right, because you have to think in 8 directions. You know, you have to be aware of all these different types of ways that you can move. But when you can simplify something to just moving up and down, and that's all you have to focus on, move up, move down, and that's pretty much it, you know, you're making your brain work a lot more efficiently. So that's why I like, a lot of times I try to find strategies that can simplify an encounter, you know what I mean, or simplify a section, because you can, you know, you just make it much less strain on your brain than trying to comprehend all that shit coming at you and you know, trying to move 8 directions. I mean, if you have to do it, you'll adapt and do it, but if you can simplify it, it can make things a lot better. So for that, you know, that's a boss where you can just keep your back against the wall. It gives you the most time to respond, and you can pretty much stay like that the whole time. You know, you may want to improvise a little like I did, move out from the back sometimes, but there's also going to be at least one more boss where you can do that same kind of strategy. You know, it's a very similar strategy. So I'll recommend that again for that part. Pretty standard here. You know, it's getting harder, I think, by this point, but it's just about finding your path, you know, carving out your path. I try to avoid the bees with the lasers most of the time by either staying all the way in the bottom of the screen or, you know, just staying away from them. I'll kill one here and there as it appears, but I don't like to get in front of them because those long lasers can be annoying. But yeah, remember, just kill what you need to. Don't try to kill those spiders on the ceiling if you can just drive through the area, you know what I mean? Don't worry about it if it's not. Just be aware of them firing at you know, intervals. They fire every so often. You'll get used to the pulse of, you know, the patterns of these kind of games. But, you know, just be aware that they're there and be ready for them to fire. But aside from that, just try to make it through the bulk of the enemies. And don't worry about killing every enemy. Like I said, just focus on the stuff that's going to cause you problems and try to carve a path. You may want to kill flashing enemies every so often to get power-ups. But keep in mind that grabbing power-ups in this game will get you fucking killed a lot. So sometimes it's better to ignore all the power-ups and just focus on surviving. For this is the one where you can keep your back against the wall yet again. And if you have double fire, it's even better because you'll kill those webs a lot easier. instead of getting hit by them. But even with single fire, you can keep your back against the wall, and all you really need to really focus on is the red spinning shots that come on, the spit bullets that come out, the little red spinners. You don't have to, the spiders he shoots out, you don't really have to pay attention to at all. So you're reducing, all the shit your brain has to focus on. Now all you have to focus on is keeping your back against the wall, moving up and down, and just the red bullets. And if you just focus on that, you make the fight a lot easier than if you're trying to focus on everything at once. All 8 directions, webs, bullets. Instead of focusing on all that, just limit your focus. And if you die, just keep trying again. It's not that hard to get back to the spider anyway. So, and practice it with save and load states, to get it down. But yeah, this game is the kind of game where, grabbing power-ups, there's usually a bullet with the power-up. So you got to be very careful about grabbing them. But as you learn to carve out your paths better, you can, kind of plan ahead and get better at grabbing some of the power-ups. But there's a lot of times, like later on in the few final checkpoints, grabbing a power-up is almost always death until you really learn the path. Because it's so filled with bullets. It hasn't gotten to that point yet, but you'll see what I'm talking about in the end, especially if you try this game. But yeah, this section didn't give me really any trouble. I beat this section pretty quickly. But it's going to get hard. This is actually the final level. Yeah, this is where it gets really hard. So, if you made it this far, now is where it's really going to test you if you're going to finish the game. And this is really going to be about finding a very specific path. Even though it looks like I'm just, reacting, a lot of that is memorization. Mixed with Twitch reaction, obviously. You're going to want to take out these dragonflies and be aware when they're coming out because they come out from the back of the screen. So you're going to get used to counting how many of them there are. There's 2 in that section. But you're gonna get used to that because they'll come out of the back of the screen and just kill you, so you can't keep your back against the middle of the wall, or you'll just be dead. So do be aware of that. And now we're coming up on our final checkpoint. This is the last checkpoint of the game. For this, kill these green dragonflies immediately. Get on their ass and grind bullets right into their fucking ass and kill them. If you don't do that, you're going to have a hell of a time. I don't even know if it's possible without doing that. Maybe it is, but I don't recommend it. So make sure you grind out those 3 dragonflies. That's the priority. And then stay in the upper area and get all the way through here. Try to grab those power-ups and be aware there's one more dragonfly that's going to come out behind you that we just saw. So be ready for that and be ready to kill that. Try to grab all the power-ups if you can, but you're going to have to practice just to even survive this for a while. So just give it time. For this boss, what I like to do, I keep my back against the wall, and I just move down or up very, very incrementally, and it kind of lures the bullets to kind of come at you, because they go to your last known position. So what you want to do is keep your back up against the wall and just move down or up, but very, very, like just tap it, and you'll lure them out, and then you just go around. And I like to mostly move up into the right top area, because the boss is usually... leaves a big gap at the top that you can fit in if you need to survive. But sometimes it's going to be very tight and you're going to be right up on the boss and he'll crush you either from the top or the bottom. But the bottom I find to be the most tightest and dangerous area where I get cornered in a lot. So I try to move up into the right top areas where I try to move around and dodge all the final bullets. But yeah, that's about it. So let me know if that helped you, and let me know if you have any other questions, and thanks for watching.